Welcome to part 5 of the Core 2 video tutorials. As you might guess, Core 2's ability to manage multiple instruments and effects, each with their own unique routing, makes it an ideal platform for live performance. This tutorial will show you how to set up Core 2 so that your live performances are as simple and intuitive as possible. One of the most common needs of live performers is the ability to split the keyboard between two different sounds. Core approaches this in a very visual manner. Here I have two sounds loaded at once, a bass sound and an electric piano sound. Since each of these sounds is in its own source channel, they are currently playing in parallel. If I play, you'll hear both of them at the same time. Now often this is exactly what you want, as in the example we did in a previous tutorial, where we layered several different pad sounds. In this case, however, we want to split the keyboard between these two sounds. This can be done via the Sound Manager. Here you can see the two sound channels I've loaded, both the bass and the electric piano sound. On the right, there's a visual representation of the piano keyboard. In fact, as I play, you can see corresponding feedback. As you might expect, I can adjust the range of the respective instruments right here. So let's grab the bar that represents our bass sound and drag it so it only plays up to middle C. Then we'll do the opposite with the electric piano sound. We'll drag it so its lower range begins right at middle C. Now when I play, the two ranges don't overlap, and we have a classic keyboard split. But if you listen, you can hear we have somewhat of a problem. Now that we have confined the range of the bass sound, its register is a little too low to complement the range of the electric piano. This is easy to fix. I'll just click on its source channel in the tree and increase the transpose function by 1 octave. So, via the channel mapping page, we were able to quickly create a keyboard split and do some pitch adjustments, and all in a very visual manner. We used two different sounds in this example, but real-world situations are often much more complex than this. We might have more than one keyboard split, or multiple sounds layered on top of each other. To accomplish this, the approach is exactly the same as before. Let's replace the electric piano with a layered pad sound. We'll use the browser to quickly find some pads. I'll drop these into the two sound channels next to our bass sound. This gives us a smooth, layered pad sound. Returning to the Sound Manager, we can see that both pads occupy the entire keyboard. We'll fix that by doing the same thing we did with the electric piano. Now we have a bass in the left hand and two different pad sounds in the right hand playing simultaneously. So we just saw how easy it is to create layers and splits. Core 2's live performance features go way beyond this, however. Let's say that in our live performance, we're using the bass pad split we created earlier. But later in our performance, we'd like to change to another sound in the right hand. Now, normally when using software instruments, this would require some downtime to delete the old instruments and load new ones. Such activities can be potentially disastrous in a live situation. An alternative approach is to load every instrument you might use and then manually solo some and mute others depending on what's called for in the current song. This is not only tricky work in a stage situation, but requires a lot of CPU power since all the instruments need to be loaded at once. Core 2 solves all these problems via performance presets. A performance preset is a snapshot of all the control page settings in Core 2. This means you can set your instruments up exactly the way you want them for a given song, then change their state for the next song via the touch of a button. Best of all, performance presets can also control which plugins are consuming CPU power for each song, so the instruments you don't need at the moment are not using up your CPU. Let's see this in action. As mentioned, we are going to change the sound heard in the right hand for the second song in our live set. Let's say that for this song we want to use the same electric piano we used earlier, Jewel Box. Now, if I were to play right now, the two pads and the electric piano would all play at once as expected. Let's change this. I want to turn off the electric piano. Core makes this relatively straightforward, as each channel in the sound matrix has a dedicated control page for common mixer operations, such as output level and panning. On this same control page, there is also an on-off switch for the channel. I'll press it to turn off the electric piano. However, pressing this button not only means that the electric piano is muted, but it is also no longer consuming CPU. The significance of this will become apparent in a moment. Now let's open Core 2's Performance Preset page. This is where you save and modify performance presets, as we'll see in a moment. I have everything configured as I want it for the first song in my set. The pads are ready, and the electric piano is off. So I'll save this state as a performance preset by clicking Append. Core is waiting for me to give it a name, so I'll call it Song Number 1. Now, watch what I do here. For the second song in my set, I need the electric piano, but not the pads. So I'll turn the pads off by clicking the channel on-off buttons on their respective channel page. And then I'll turn the electric piano back on. I'll save this as a new performance preset. And I'll call it Song Number 2. Now, when I recall the first performance preset, we'll see the electric piano turn off, and we'll hear our bass pads split. And when I select the second performance preset, we'll see the pads turn off, and we'll hear the electric piano. Keep in mind that when using this method, if you're not hearing an instrument, it is also not consuming CPU. This allows you to build elaborate live sets using a large number of plugins in a way that would ordinarily not be possible, but is possible within Core because only the sounds and effects you need at any given time are actually using resources. Now, I just changed presets by clicking on the desired preset name, but of course you can change presets by using nothing but the Core controller. Here your song names will show up in large text for easy reading on stage, so you can select them directly by name. We just created two performance presets to change which sounds we're hearing, but performance presets can keep track of much more than that. Let's say that the third song in our set also uses the electric piano, but this song has more of a bright pop flavor, so let's change the character of our electric piano to match. Once again, we'll work with the sound's control page, this time to tweak the sound's character. I'll increase the DX parameter on the electric piano's control page, which gives it more of a DX7 character. I'll also turn off the tremolo button so the piano is less ethereal and ready for a bright pop track. Great! Now let's save this as its own performance preset. Now when I select song number 2, we have our original electric piano sound. And when I recall song number 3, we have our bright pop piano. We just set up the environment for 3 different songs. 2 of these songs achieve their sound palette by switching instruments altogether, and one song's sound is defined by recalling different settings within the same instrument. You could extend this example to include literally dozens of plugins in the same performance without the normal limitations of CPU overhead, since, via performance presets, you can tell Core to control which instruments are consuming CPU, and when. The sky's the limit from here. You could use performance presets to change signal routings, switch between effects, trigger MIDI files using Kore's internal MIDI file player, and so on. And always remember that the Core controller makes this possible via the touch of a button, so no interaction with your computer is required on stage. Now that we've seen what a performance preset is, let's see how to get the most out of them. Returning to the performance preset page, you probably remember that we clicked on the Append button to take a snapshot of the state of Kore's control pages and add a new preset to the end of the list. But we also have the ability to store a preset into any slot we wish by clicking the desired slot and choosing Store. If an existing preset is selected, it will be overwritten. Delete does exactly what it sounds like. It deletes whichever preset is selected. Sometimes the order of songs in your set list changes, and in Core 2, that's no problem. Just grab a preset and move it somewhere else. While you may only see a total of 8 presets in this current list, there are actually 16 banks of 8, giving you 128 presets in total. You can freely move presets between banks just as you can rearrange the order of presets in the same bank. You can also use the Previous and Next buttons to move between presets. One advantage of this system is that if you happen to have a blank space in your preset list due to moving presets around, the Previous Next buttons will skip the gap and go to the next preset. This is handy if you have to do some last-minute rearrangement of your set list before the gig. You can save the preset housekeeping for later, and Core 2 will still make sure the show goes off without a hitch. We named our presets when we created them, but their name can of course be changed at any time, as can the name of banks. By the way, up to this point, we have been using one performance preset per song, but you could easily use multiple presets for each song. One for intro, one for verse, one for chorus, etc. Changing performance presets within the same song is no problem, since it happens smoothly and instantaneously. However, there are instances when you might actually want Core 2 to delay switching between presets, and this is what the timing section is for. When Core's play button is engaged, or when Core is loaded into a sequencer, as in the previous tutorial, selecting beat or bar will cause Core to wait until the next beat or bar before switching presets. This can make a transition happen in a rhythmically useful manner for tight timings. Finally, comments can be added to performance presets to qualify them in any manner you want. We hope you've enjoyed this series of tutorials on Core 2. This really only scratches the surface, so be sure to consult the Core 2 product manual to find out even more ways that Core can improve your music making.